What is the name of the planet that Leia gave Grand Moff Tarkin as the false location of the Rebel base in Episode 4?
Dantooine.
What is the name of the gunner in Luke's snowspeeder?
Dak.
Where is a woman's G-spot located?
What?
Welcome back, everybody, to the Harbor. I'm your host, the Kino Cowboy. Scott's back from vacation, chilling. It sucks Casher had to miss this one because he's sick, and this is very integral to me and him growing up.
Yeah.
But today we're talking about Fanboys, a film from 2009 that is about a group of dorks. Incels, really, yeah. Ahead of its time, really.
But also not.
But
also firmly behind its own time.
They decided to break into Skywalker Ranch to see episode 1 early because the hype was unreal. And
I do, watching that and watching the last scene of it where they're in the theater and it's about to go off. I did see episode 1 in theaters. I was a child. I didn't see it at midnight. I do wish I could have experienced that, even if it was for the crushing disappointment or whatever. Although from what I hear, most people had sort of a, not an imposter syndrome. What am I trying to think of? They convinced themselves. Copium.
Here's the thing. I'm a clear true blue fan of the prequels and George Lucas in general.
I'm a fan of episode 3 and the prequels expanded mythos. I love the prequels very much. Of episode very 1, much. There's some cool stuff. Darth Maul and yada yada. Pod race goes on too long. It's pretty cool though. Jar Jar's Jar Jar. You know.
I don't give a fuck. All 3 of those movies are awesome and insane, and it's the fact that Lucas changed the landscape of digital filmmaking while making these, and like just he was focused on tech probably a little too much, but that's part of the fun of it, is how much they're a product of their time too. I love all that.
I do appreciate that. And
but the Gen X lens is only the first 2 Star Wars are good, and the third one's like shitty but okay at best, and anything other than that is ass. Blah 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 blah.
I really, the more I think about it, everybody craps on boomers. I kind of don't think Gen X gets enough hate.
I know.
Like, if Gen Z and millennials and boomers are all going to get hate, Gen X, like, deserves their portion.
That's what I'm saying. And that's kind of what I want to talk about this for, is because when this came out, like, when I was growing up on the internet, all of the adult conversations in the nerdum, in the like, everything online about the stuff that I liked that was nerdy was all coming from Gen Xers, and they all had their bandwagon opinions, like, oh, this sucks, this rules, this is gay, this is stupid, and et cetera, and it was like, prequels bad, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is an abomination, George Lucas raped my childhood, just insane shit like that. And speaking of those 2 horrible words I use, I will give a little thing that this movie is deep rooted in problematic.
It is. Are you saying gay is bad
language? I'm saying that I will be repeating words that are said in this movie, so that is a content warning right now, because this is deep rooted in that.
Wait until we review Shaft.
No. But it's just so interesting because as a kid, or not as a kid, I was 14,
as an adolescent.
Yeah, it was kind of ahead of its time for a movie to be about something this, at the time, I considered to be kind of niche, because
the Comic-Con sort of fan culture was not as into the mainstream.
It was not. Yeah, this was like as what's his name, Jay Baruchel, or how do you say
Baruchel.
it?
Who I like.
Yeah, like he said it. He's like, it's pre-Big Bang Theory. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Well, that's the thing. I thought this movie, and I guess that's probably when I watched it, was kind of more of early 2010s, but it's 2009. It's at the tail end of the 2000s. Oh yeah, no,
and it was
feels like it.
It was shot in 2006 and 2007 too. Like,
that's right. It took them forever to get this made for some reason. I forget why.
Yeah, we'll get into that. And
get into that.
Well, it's just like, Yeah, it was right then. It was right before, younger folks might not know, but it was like right before nerd culture and everything, comic book and sci-fi and shit became mainstream popular, and
Pre-Avengers.
suddenly was fucking cool as hell, and now is the biggest fucking money grabbing force in the industry.
Pre-Avengers, pre-Dark Knight,
Yeah. Well,
films before Iron Man came out. Oh, Dark Knight had come out.
it was around that time when Dark Knight and Iron Man were coming out.
Right.
So it was getting there, but it was like, it was just a different world. And this movie made me nostalgic for two different time periods. One I can barely remember, which was when I was fucking 4 or 5, and I would rewatch the original trilogy on VHS all the time. And I
Okay.
remember my mom coming into the room and be like, "You know they're making a new one, right?" And that's one of my earliest memories. And I'm being like,
Is that
"What do you
really?
mean? Like, what do you mean a new one?" And
That's funny.
yeah.
I don't remember where I was. I think I just saw it on TV and stuff. And I remember the poster with Darth Vader's shadow coming from Jake Lloyd's, but and or whatever, him farting out Darth Vader's shadow. This is the level of comedy you get in Fanboys.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, it is an interesting thing. Kristen Bell's in this, and she's too talented. She had Veronica Mars, and this was shot before not Sarah Silverman, Sarah Marshall
Oh,
came out, I guess, since it was shot in like 2006.
but
So they lucked out on that one.
this was also
The thing is, there were fewer, and part of this is ease of access. There were fewer movies in the so-called nerd canon, but also part of that is, again, if you in the 2000s and certainly before wanted to be into anime, you had to work for it.
yeah.
You know, and if you were in a big city, you might be able to find some dedicated VHS stores. But I mean, if you were in Podunk, Ohio, like these guys are, yeah, you have Star Wars, and it's that weird thing. I've always found this weird about a lot of nerd culture, other than the entire idea of basing your entire identity around consumption, which is this movie is like not even smart enough to delve into it, and hardly at all. Like it's almost brought up a couple times, but not.
No, it's not meant for that.
It's not even.
But I will
This is
say,
the same guy who wrote Ready Player One.
yeah, we're about to get into Ernest Cline real quick, but I was gonna say, like I said, it reminded me of two different eras because the movie takes place right before Phantom Menace, so it reminds me of that era. But then it also reminds me of that era that it's been like 3 or 4 years since Revenge of the Sith had come out, and everything had finally started to settle with like Star Wars. Like, okay, it's over. Like these are the last movies. Like we were getting Clone Wars season 1 and like The Force Unleashed and stuff, but it was like really like, okay, this is the movies, like the official canon was like done and it had settled. And so at this point, I had kind of like stopped watching Star Wars as much, and I'd kind of been out of it for a little bit, even though as diehard as I can. And I will say to people at home, everyone has their favorite thing, and of course, this one was mine. I was always a hardcore Star Wars nut, always has been. I'd even say I'm in the top 20% of people of how much they enjoy the fucking franchise.
You're up there. You're about as up there as you can get without it being completely insufferable.
Yeah, and just because I don't own fucking $20,000 worth of merchandise doesn't mean,
and
you know.
and I can have pretty you've seen me on the podcast. I can have pretty damn in-depth conversations about Star Wars, and I don't know if I'd put myself in the top 40%.
Yeah.
After having seen multiple TV shows, all the movies, including the Clone Wars movie. I guess I didn't really read the books growing up.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I read Heir to the Empire. But have you seen the 2 Ewok movies?
No, I haven't done
Oh
that.
yeah, see, I've had this. I've sat through those.
I haven't seen the holiday special. I've seen clips.
Oh, I've seen the holiday special multiple times. I'm a fucking piece of shit. But I just remember it was like around this time this movie came out was when I jumped back into my Star Wars obsession. I like rewatched Return of the Jedi one day, And for some reason, I was like, "Oh shit! I
Oh
really
yeah, this is my favorite movie.
yeah, exactly." And then I got Casher back in on it, and then we were like so in on it that we were bringing lightsabers to school and having people fight with them in the courtyard and shit during lunch.
In
And
high
for like,
school?
yeah, and for a week we got away with it. People were like having a fun time too. It was not we were not being laughed at. Like people were like, let me get that shit, bro. And people were like fighting with the lightsabers in the courtyard, and then they shut it down and said it could lead to this or that. But yeah, we
Yeah.
went hard
But
with our
that,
nerdom.
that's why every school needs a cop with a lightsaber just to stop the kids with
Jesus, dude.
lightsabers.
I will say, like, I will speak for Casher because he's not on the cast, but that was the breaking point for him in high school where he was like, fuck these fucking jock douchebags I'm hanging out with. I'm going to openly flaunt that I watch nothing but anime and love Star Wars and this and that. And he like really dove into his nerdom. And so that's when like he really started bonding hardcore with my friend group, and it merged pretty hard. And
Right.
I don't know. So
And even I remember, so we met because we had a stupid speech class, oral communications
oh
together,
yeah, dumb.
mandated by the state of Arkansas for some reason. You wouldn't think it by the way people speak, but the I remember being like, oh, this is like the only other guy I've met in this high school who has seen Blade Runner. Like that was kind of one of the starts of our relationship, I guess.
Yeah. Oh shit. And in that class, I did that stupid troll speech that was like, why Star Wars is better than Star Trek, and it was the most bullshit thing that I put together.
Oh, it was funny though because it was complete.
But that ties in because
There's a weird rivalry. Here's the thing: in real life, I've never seen a rivalry between Trekkies or Trekkers and Star Wars fans, and there's a lot of overlap.
yeah.
I
But
don't. So it's
the
almost
internet
like
made me think growing up that there's like you can only have one, you have to be on one side. And just as a kid, you're like, oh, okay, well, Star Wars for life, baby, you know.
no. I know Star Wars a lot better because I didn't grow up watching Star Trek. And I'll be honest, Star Trek, like even the OG series, dude, it's slow. It's some slow. I mean, it's great, it's brilliant, but also, it's 60s television, and
I
it is what it is.
I'm afraid I haven't gone into Star Trek. I've only seen the J.J. Abrams ones. And well, no, I've seen movie 2 and movie 4.
Right.
And
I think I've seen movie 4. I still need to see it. For some reason, Wrath of Khan is one of those, like, I need to watch it, but I need like to focus. I need like the right environment.
but also no, Wrath of Khan really is like, I feel like there's a lot of you get more out of it if you watch the show.
Yeah.
Just because it takes you to like this next level of like what they can do with these characters, from what I've heard. But we're not here to talk about Trek as much.
But well, no. I think it falls into the umbrella of nerd culture.
Sure.
And I don't know. They're just, well, I don't want to get too much in the science fiction lineages. Sci-fi is your more probably traditional, kind of in ways more traditional sci-fi versus your space opera, space fantasy, which is, not exactly an original observation, but you can also have both.
Yeah, you can have both.
And it comes back to that weird tribalism, Marvel versus DC.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like getting really. I always described it as like getting really attached to whether you prefer Big Macs or Whoppers. You fucking consumer. Like, who gives a shit? If you're hungry, eat a burger.
Well, first of all, if you eat Burger King, you're fucking trash. That's vile.
Those are both pretty trash options.
I'd rather eat McDonald's. Fucking Burger King, I avoid at all costs. But that's just me. But I came to respect Star Trek. Obviously, I would like to watch Next Generation at some point because that looks like a show I would enjoy.
I know I've seen like some Next Generation. There's some good stuff.
Really,
it's completely different. Yeah,
it's legitimately watching Mike Stacklasa talk about it is made me be like, oh, I think I actually would like this.
There's an argument to be made, and I might actually agree with it, that Star Trek as a universe is, because it wasn't based around 3 movies, they had to make multiple seasons of TV and eventually multiple series out of it. Like, as a universe, it has a richer soil for which to have stories, just because you have not everything's built not everything's built around the Skywalkers, as was a mistake in the sequel trilogy. That's a big one. There's none of this lineage bullshit.
Yeah.
Or even just the idea of the Force or Force users. You can have all these different things going on, and it's not locked into these.
Yeah.
And this Gen X nostalgia of like, this is what it is. This 2-hour thing.
This is why they rejected the idea of Rey being a nobody, et cetera, et cetera. We don't have to get into The Last Jedi in detail, but that's another Gen X thing, I think. But yeah, this movie pushed my anti-Star Trek stupid contrived nerd bullshit into overdrive. So me and Cash were like, fuck Trekkies, yeah. Live long
I
and
remember
prosper,
because I remember I had
fuck, dick, and die. Trekkie
I had a
scum.
class with Casher. I German with Casher. I think that's where I first met him. And it's like if the teacher did this, Casher would look away if he did the Vulcan salute. It was that bad. At the time, I was spending all of my weekends at the LAN gaming center, and even I thought it was lame of Casher.
Yeah. Now, the thing is that at the time we were just glad as fuck, really, to have a movie with all these dorky Star Wars references. But the difference is that Casher and I were 15 and in high school
Not
and
30.
virgins, unlike the people that made this movie who are grown ass fucking adults.
And virgins.
And like, you know, this is all Ernest Cline's fault, really. And
well, they even cleaned it up. I was watching, before this, I was on YouTube trying to find like behind the scenes sort of commentary, DVD commentary. That used to be a thing. Which this movie was very much made for the DVD market of like you throw it on at a party or something.
well, kinda.
Kind of. I mean, but also I guess for the con market of people wanting to like dress out and go up, but I don't think it did that great in theaters.
No, here I was gonna before we start, I was gonna preface this with one. They got into a messy deal with fucking Harvey Weinstein, which you know how that goes.
And Harry Knowles are connected to this movie.
And then yeah, there's a Harry Knowles connection, but also I wanted to preface, but you know we're already in it, that this film was written by Ernest fucking Cline, primo supremo Gen X lamo 1980s. I love the 1980s. That's all I can think about. I review Elmo and Grouchland like an actual movie on YouTube. Shout out Mike Matei. That kind of fucking dude.
I respect Mike Matei more than
He's like a living, walking Glup Shido moments kind of guy. And if you don't know who Glup Shido is, ladies and gentlemen, and anyone in between, it is a made-up character from a Tumblr text post that's just making fun of all the pointing at the screen cameos in the Star Wars movies that Disney has done now, which is not just Disney, or not just Star Wars, but in just pop culture in general, Marvelization, etc.
I mean, I had a good time because I took my 5-year-old niece with me, but like that's all the Mario movie is like, oh, I recognize that from the games. Oh, I recognize that from the games. With the
kind of, this is more,
but
like,
also again, that movie is made for 5-year-olds. That's the difference.
Yeah, I once had they were making Deadpool 3, which is like the epitome of that kind of dorky ass, epic Chungus, Funko Pop, Gen X kind of humor, which I hate and despise. Sumner tricked me into watching both of them both times when they came to theaters. He's like, no, this one's gonna be way better. The third one, I was like,
there's a third Deadpool?
They're making it, yeah. And what it should be is just Deadpool sitting in front of a conveyor, and he pulls on the conveyor, and a new cameo comes out of a different obscure character, and they point it out, and then he pulls another one, and another cameo comes out. It's just an hour and a half of cameos.
Yeah, it should be like a gotcha machine, like he's opening little things and like, oh look, an anime girl I can objectify, even though she's 14, but she's drawn with like giant boobs because Japan's full of pedophiles. Anyway,
Ernest Cline made Ready Player One, which is the epitome of this, which Spielberg turned into a movie, and it's better than the book, but it's still very much like, I love the 1980s. Here's all these references.
And here's the thing, I read the book, and you did. I enjoyed the book just because my uncle, who's a Gen X nerd, he was born in 1970. He has a Darth Vader spatula.
Yeah.
But he actually has 2 children, so he's fucked at least twice. But he recommended me this book, and I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. This is novel. There's a fun sort of mystery element to it. And I do, it's very kind of lazily tacked on. I do like I don't know, at least at the end of Spielberg's version, it's kind of like says reality is good. But and then it's Ready Player One almost has this conflict of like utopia and dystopia, because it's like, oh, the virtual world is the utopia because outside sucks so much, but then oh no, it's actually dystopic because people are living in a fake land. But I don't know how well it reconciles those two. It's not
Yeah.
critical enough of the idea, kind of like this movie, and Roger Ebert said it in his review, this movie isn't critical enough of what it depicts. It's too loving of this culture. And you can do both. I feel like there is a way you could have depicted this, because there are moments of this movie, like the friendship of these guys reminds me of my friendships, my friendship with you, my friendships with other people, my friendships with the my tabletop RPG group that we would reference this movie, talk about it with, because of course they're a bunch of Gen X nerds, or kind of elder millennial, really. But so I think there are things going for this movie. There are moments that I think are genuinely charming.
There's some jokes I do like Seth Rogen saying like, no, Trekkie is derogatory. We prefer Trekker. I like that.
No,
joke.
Seth Rogen's great in this. I really love it when he's like his pimp character, and he has the Jar Jar Binks and Jake Lloyd on his back.
Yeah, dude. And he did this movie as like a favor. He didn't get paid for it. He just
that's
was
awesome.
Like on board, which is nice of him. But yeah, Ernest Cline, this was his brainchild for a long time. His mom had lymphoma and was dying over the course of a year in the late 90s. And he, like, during this time, he gained a lot of weight, played a lot of stuff, and clung to his movies and nerd shit that he liked, like Star Wars, to cope. You know, that happens. Your mom's fucking dying of cancer. I get it. I do empathize with that. And this is around the time when Lucas was like, all right, I'm headed back. We're going to make Phantom Menace. We're going to make a new Star Wars. So, of course, and a guy like that, your imagination runs wild. And then he was like, well, wait a minute. If I was in the shoes of my mom, what would I do before I died? And that's where the idea came from. And so I can respect that idea well enough because of the personal connection to him, which, you know. But this movie, he was gonna save up. He saved up like $20,000 to make the movie himself. But then he like got around to shooting some test footage and shit. And he's like, well, man, I don't know shit about filmmaking. I can't do this justice.
Wait, I have to tell a story and like block it out and not just have a bunch of references for
and so he
$20,000.
He didn't do shit with it. So the script just started circulating online in the early 2000s, and it became a hot ticket, like a real talked about thing, because old Harry Knowles from Ain't It Cool News, the supremo nerdo, like final boss of Gen X nerds, fucking, he thought the script was like incredible and one of the best scripts ever. So that's like how it got famous before it even got close to being
Harry
made.
Knowles is one of the worst things to ever happen to film criticism, and possibly the film industry since the Hays Code.
Yeah, if anyone wants further read,
I've read articles from, I don't remember if it's the New Yorker or New York Magazine. I don't know, one of those pretentious, but I don't know, good, reputable journalistic outlets. And like he would basically trade, if they flew him out to a press junket and put him in a nice hotel and were real nice to him, like he would basically trade good coverage for favors like that. And so they would use him to court. And I'll just say right now, I'm a journalist, and people have kind of tried that with me, and I'm like, I don't care. Screw you. I don't know. I'm gonna write whatever I want. I don't care. If you don't fly me out again, I don't care. But you know, Harry Knowles is the difference between me and him is about 400 pounds. But
okay,
I digress.
don't be like that. This guy, whether we like it or not, had a major influence in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Huge, until he got Me Too'd.
Nerd culture.
He and Weinstein and Kevin Spacey had a part in making this movie. Ain't
It Cool News was where you got your inside scoops, that and the force.net.
But then sometimes the inside scoops were like just not accurate. He didn't fact check.
Yeah.
He would just publish shit.
But
I know I'm getting off on the like journalistic integrity of this guy, but God.
Yeah, for further reading or viewing, look up his Blade 2 review.
And then Rocco Bodie's
and then go
reenactment.
watch Mega 64's performance of his review as a monologue, like in a classic theater.
And I'll be doing my monologue of it at the end of this cast, so stay tuned.
Oh, okay. But so yeah, it was passed around, and then it got to Bob and Harvey Weinstein, and then they dug it enough, and Harvey, of course, was known for being a fuck producer and wanting to inject his own shit into it and thinking, oh, this won't work in this market and this and that, so we're gonna do this and that. So they filmed most of it, and most of it's a bona fide indie movie for the most part. Like, it really feels like it, but then they sent it back for reshoots without the director Kyle Newman, and had a different director for the reshoots, and Adam Goldberg to rewrite stuff. And some of the stuff, like some of the raunchier shit was added in by the Weinstein Company, like the gay bar, which Ernest Cline, to his respect, thought that was a shitty scene and found it homophobic. And but they, it was like, we need some funnier, because it was kind of the end of that boner comedy, raunchy 2000s era comedy.
Like Harold and Kumar, which is actually a very fond memory from my childhood.
Yeah.
And the Van Wilder.
And
anything
but-
you'll find playing now at Comedy Central till like 1 a.m.
Yeah. And there's positive and negatives to Adam Goldberg coming on to rewrite some stuff, because Jay Baruchel claims that Adam Goldberg really whipped the script into shape, because he said, like, Jay Baruchel said that before Adam Goldberg rewrote it, some of it, that the script was basically 100 pages of IG-88 jokes. Like which is our equivalent today of glup shitto,
It's just like too obscure,
but it's
that's
still
the thing,
that
it's still the thing about this movie, and it is a road movie, so part of it's the genre, but there's a lot of loosely connected episodes that don't really coalesce into anything. There's not a dramatic. There's just not a lot of, and when I say dramatic, I don't mean like drama, but I mean in terms of just impact on the plot. A lot of the scenes don't really impact the others in much of a way at all. They're kind of there as their self-contained little unit of narrative, but then they just go on to the next thing.
Sure.
Like the guy ends up in the hospital, and then they bust out and they have that scene, but it doesn't really affect anything else. I guess it kind of serves as a character moment of like, oh, let's have kind of an all is lost moment, and then we get the band back together and move out. But
right,
I think there are things. I know I'm skipping straight to the end of the movie, but oh shoot, there are just times where I feel like, okay, here's an example. I just feel like there are missed opportunities they could have used more for some sort of character development instead of one-off jokes. Now, one of the most Gen X things you can do is go, if I had written the movie, I would have done this. But if I had written the movie, I would have done this. And it's something like when at the end of the movie where he's like threatening to break the Millennium Falcon or whatever, that could have been a dramatic moment of, oh, I have to examine if my love of this object, of this franchise, is actually greater or less than my love for my friend being held by the security guard. And that's played up a little, but then it's completely undercut when it's like, oh, and then more security guards come in, they get taken away anyway. So the character ultimately never has to make that decision. So it's building up to this character moment of, okay, maybe the character will make this decision of what he loves more, but then that's undercut completely, and it undercuts the drama, it undercuts the character growth, just so we can move on to the next sort of set piece or joke.
yeah, that's a great point.
I think there's little things. I would have to look at my notes more in more minutia, but we don't have to get into the weeds in this podcast.
No,
there's things like this from a structural level in the script where scenes feel disconnected, and part of it's because of reshoots, like the gay bar thing. The ayahuasca trip is just in there, or the peyote or whatever. It's in there and then they have a scene with the cops that also doesn't. I don't know. I guess they end up in jail, and there's a Judge
It's kind
Reinhold
of just
joke.
like a
It's
cornball
just-
kind of thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that,
It doesn't have to be.
but and like a goofy comedy. But I will say that at least there is some dramatic moments involving the Linus who has cancer, and it is like fueled by that. And I do really like the final scene where he just sits and watches the movie, and he doesn't say whether it's good or bad because that's not the point. And the fact that he gets to watch it, I do like. And then
This movie sticks the landing.
he closes his eyes, and then that's a good thing. And that's the thing, is that Weinstein, people got into his ear and saying, "Oh, I'm not laughing during the cancer related stuff. This shit needs to be cut out." So he's like, "Yeah, we don't need this in the movie." So they had to fight tooth and nail for a year to just have this fucking shit in it, and they did some reshoots so that it could be without the cancer plot. And so the Jay Baruchel and the director were both like, dude, these just look like drunk dickheads who are deciding, oh, let's just go because we're drunk and we think it's a good idea. It's just so, like, you have just that little bit of drama that adds enough to it, and they wanted to take that out just because, oh, I don't know.
Focus testing.
Yeah, focus. They did two different cuts.
It's amazing. It's very difficult as an even semi-creative person. I mean, I'm a creative person. We're creative people. But to try to get in the heads of business people, which I can to an extent, but there's a certain point where and rapists. I was talking in general, but yes. The just black and whiteness, like, oh, this focus tested this way, and I'm not going to examine like the context in which it was focus tested in this weird like sanitary thing. And then also, I also feel like the people who run the focus test have to like egg the audience on to like focus to what they want. Like even when like cinema score, when something gets an A+ cinema score, it's like I feel like somebody had to egg them on for everybody to give it an A+. Because I mean, I think your average person, any sort of logical person, which is probably not the average film goer, but any sort of logical person would be like, how many movies are really an A+? You know, it's like once every 5 years.
It's not saying the movie is an A+. It's saying families will enjoy this general audience type of film well enough.
Yeah, but it's such an odd thing though, because people do have to fill out the card or whatever at the end of it.
Yeah.
And I've seen the card. You can pick A+, like you can do that. So I don't know how they average it. It's probably real fucky. And they fudge numbers and weight it somehow. I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Anyway, Hollywood's dumb.
I'm nostalgic for this movie, even though it does not hold up like I was hoping it would. But there's stuff.
Were you really expecting it or hoping for it to hold up?
No, it's just like, I don't know. It was a part of my childhood, so
I think I watched it when I was a bit older. I might have been 17. I might have even been 18 or older.
Yeah, no, I was 15.
No, I wasn't. And I know, like, I'm only a year older than you, but I do feel like high school junior and high school senior, there is a difference in mentality there.
I was in 10th grade.
Yeah. But I might have watched it like a year later or something.
But
I will say one more before we move on. I know I'm interrupting a lot.
No,
but
it's okay.
The thing I remember about this movie was not them hitting the light speed button. I didn't remember that until I saw it again. I was like, oh yeah, they do that.
Yeah.
It wasn't any of that. Yeah, I kind of remember the cameos and the shitty Judge Reinhold joke that Arrested Development did 100 times better. But
and the Clerks animated series.
But what I remember was Linus sitting in the woods saying, "I'm good right here," and closing his eyes. Like that's what I remember from this movie, is that emotional moment. And it's simple and understated and beautiful. And also I talked to a Gen X nerd who used to own that LAN gaming center, who was only like 25 when he opened it, I realized, or maybe even younger, maybe like 23. But in town, and I remember him complaining, why wasn't there another scene after that where they're like in the hospital or something?
What a moron.
Yeah, exactly. He said that with the Avengers too. He was like, dude, they go from like Thor picking up the hammer after falling out of the helicarrier right to New York. I'm like, what else is there to do? They're moving on to the next act. Like,
these are the kind of people that sit in their armchairs and review shit on YouTube about how this and that is, Jesus.
yes,
dude.
and I know we comment on movies, but I gave this movie the benefit of the doubt going in. I'm gonna highlight positive things I like about it. This is not cinema sins. That's the difference.
Yeah.
And I will also admit that if you gave me $10 million and said make a movie, yeah, I would have to basically just be like, okay, cinematographer, what do you want to do?
Nah, dude, what?
I would be able to say like, I want the shot kind of like this. I probably am not giving myself enough credit. I would really have to delegate though, which is the director.
Yeah, no. Let's remake this movie. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I will say, like, some of the stuff I did forget about. Like I said earlier, this is like very much the end of that raunch 2000s era comedy.
There's some
gay
F-bombs,
jokes,
and I don't
there's
mean
gay
fuck.
jokes, there's rape jokes, and they say retard and they say fag, and it hits like a brick now, and you're like, what the fuck? And that's what's fucked is the shock of it still gets me, because there's like only 2 times I actually laughed out loud. It was when they hit Lightspeed and they crash, and then it cuts to Hutch in jail. He's like, I shouldn't have called that cop a fag. And for some reason, that was the first time. 40 minutes in the movie, I didn't laugh until that because of the shock.
It's the shock humor. It's kind of the lack of irony. And you could argue B, it's the character moment of this character's an idiot, because he's like the fat comedic guy. I like a lot of the cast. I like, what's his name? Dan Fogelman. Or whatever. Dan
I
Fogler.
like him. It's just
I think he's a good comedic actor. I like him in Balls of Fury. That movie's kind of a guilty pleasure of mine.
It's just like
I like Jay Baruchel.
A lot of critics say it feels undercooked, and I agree.
Yeah,
but that's what's fucked is that Ernest Cline did like 12 or 13 scripts versions, and then Goldberg did like 15. So he did
15 revisions.
Yeah, if you're like 30 versions of a movie in, it's still this like undercooked and weak with like its dialogue and delivery and shit, then I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't know, but like there's a weird pacing to some of the dialogue that just makes shit fall flat. I feel like
there is, and some of it seems contrived, like, okay, now we need to say this line. I even remember at the end at that wood scene, which I was complimenting earlier. But there's one point where he puts his hand on the shoulder. He's like, it wasn't about the movie. It was about us. And it's like, okay, that line didn't need to be there at all.
You didn't have to say that.
But even if you did, you didn't even need the second half of that. You could have just said it wasn't about the movie. Or you could have just not said it at all.
Yes.
Unless you really think your audience is dumb, which likely are if they're seeing this movie.
But yeah, it's that example that makes me, it feels like this movie was actually written by 14-year-olds over the course of a weekend.
It's like if Superbad never had another pass by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg.
I don't know about that. I think they're just naturally more talented writers.
Sure.
But yeah, it's just shit like that. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of hits and misses with jokes. I like I said, the Trekker thing, the Jar Jar tattoo is good.
That's my favorite. My favorite line is just him go, and this side is the dark side. Don't join, with that stupid Seth Rogen voice.
Yeah.
I don't know why that makes me laugh. Because it's Seth Rogen. That's why. And the novelty of having 2 Seth Rogens fight each other.
You get the drama of the dude who's like, come on, guys, you have to grow up. Basically, that guy who's like the car salesman who gets a conflict of, well, his dad wants to give him the fucking dealership basically, but he has to be back by the weekend. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. But 2, we should have had a scene between him and his father that kind of ties that up, but we don't.
No, we really don't. I assume we learn by the end he follows his dreams to become a comics artist.
I know.
And I didn't even really get a sense why they picked Eric as his name. Eric instead of his older brother Chaz, who is a Chad, hence the name Chaz, but seems almost like he would be a better fit to do that. but maybe he's too much of a Chad. I think there's a deleted scene where the dad really liked the commercial that he made, or helped make. Even though the dad was probably like, and I want a bunch of babes to be around me. I don't know. You have him looking like a freaking Gordo from Santa Sangre with the hat and the fake tan and everything, or like Bret Michaels, whatever.
Yeah, and I'm glad that he of course, it's good that he does his own thing, does his comic book thing, but this is only 6 months later, and he's already having multiple issues come out. That's unrealistic as hell.
Yeah, I don't know how self-publishing.
Whatever.
I mean, you could have had a couple issues if they're like 20.
I guess, but already distributed wide enough to where those two guys would come up and recognize him.
Arguably, maybe they're in their hometown and they
Yeah.
I know this guy because he's a hometown artist.
Yeah.
But also, the fact that I'm having to piece it together and apologize for be an apologist for the movie is kind of the problem.
Yeah,
and it's
interesting.
Not that important. It's just enough of little things like that where I don't feel the connective tissue between scenes and certain plot elements.
Yeah, and that's the thing is some of it really feels like that indie movie that they were already making, and then some of it feels like, like National Lampoon shit. Like 2000s National Lampoon, not OG.
Yeah, not Vacation, but the sex.
And
not Vacation, but Vegas Vacation.
And there are movies that it's the concept alone that drives people to go see it. And this concept is an alone of, we're going to break into Skywalker Ranch to watch Star Wars early before it comes out. That is a strong enough concept that it drove people to watch it. And that's why I think DVDs and rental sales were good enough.
Yeah. Although they don't do enough with that concept at the climax of the movie.
I will. Yeah. But one of my favorite jokes is actually the for some reason they have an assload of security and they all have to dress up as the guards from THX 1138. That is fucking too stupid. As a teenager, I thought it was I can't suspend my disbelief, blah, blah, blah. But to me now, it's just such an insane idea that it really got to me this time. I actually like that joke more now.
It's pretty funny. I think what bugs me, and talking about suspending disbelief, I think what bugs me is it's like they didn't mention or think of cameras the whole time. They got this layout and this key card from this girl
stupid.
From Harry Knowles' daughter, which is also weird. Harry Knowles, he gets
the layout. They get the layout from Harry Knowles' daughter, and then they get the key card from William Shatner.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
But just be
Shatner's the only way I'm in a Star Wars movie is if I'm sabotaging George Lucas.
Yeah.
That's
which they did screen this to George Lucas and he enjoyed it and gave his stamp of approval, and then not only that, but he said, y'all can use sound effects from our sound effect library. What the fuck?
That's cool.
If George Lucas told me that and I was making some stupid fan film like this, I would shit myself.
That'd be great. I don't know. They really didn't think of cameras at any point.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
there wasn't a scene of Jay Baruchel trying to hack into the camera system,
or just spray it with silly string.
Or spray it with silly string.
Yeah, I don't know.
It could be really stupid, and they're wearing Yoda masks trying to break in.
I think I guess the idea is why would there be a fleet of fucking?
But you think there would be
guards,
a security system?
Yeah,
my grandma's house has a security system.
But also, it's oh, this is the door that Shatner would say would be unlocked. Okay. I don't know. I guess to them it was just a house that housed shit. And then the best part is that there's a rough cut just sitting on his desktop, on the desktop, ready to go. Cut. Yeah. That's fucking stupid, but also funny. I don't know.
It's funny. That one's a bit more tongue in cheek. Week.
Yeah, for sure. But it's just the other shit, Hutch, it's all childish shit. They're trying to look at chicks' tits and he keeps humping people's legs and stuff. And it's just you're a grown man, just go look at porn. You don't have to be freaking out about trying to see girls' tits.
But he wants the power. He's never seen girls' tits because he's a
virgin. I know, but
I assume these guys are 21.
They're 24.
They're 24.
They're grown fucking men.
Okay.
Getting people to flash. That's 17, 18-year-old shit. Oh, I want to see boobs, which is fucking sad. I'll admit this to people because y'all are faithful viewers. We were so influenced by this movie that we made our own sign that said "Flash if you love Wookiees," and Casher would throw it out the side of Cole's truck, and it definitely never worked. And it was really fucking cringy and really hard memory to remember. I used to be a super virgin back in the day, ladies and gentlemen.
That's funny.
And,
It's I didn't hang out with you guys in high school very much. I knew who you were, but we didn't hang out until after, really.
Yeah, somewhat.
Yeah, somewhat. No, well, it's because I was like my freshman year of college. You were like senior year of high school. We started hanging out.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
But it's just stupid shit like that I'm like, man, I do not miss some of this era of fucking comedy at all.
No,
like,
I don't either.
You fucking 15 years old. I have to
Some of the political correctness and wokeness I almost welcome.
Man.
I was like, okay, maybe no like gay biker rape jokes. I don't know.
Yeah, let's not. Yeah,
Not even because it's offensive, but because it's just lazy, shitty comedy.
Yeah, and then like, why do they have Danny Trejo doing a Native American bit either?
Yeah. I mean, I guess Mexicans have some indigenous in them.
I guess, but like, it's just weird. Like, it's I get a small little chuckle of him looking at the sky, and it has the text that says "You were very, very high." It's like, okay,
Yeah.
you know, it kind of reminds me of
lowbrow, but
it's like a Family Guy joke, is what it is.
It is.
But just some of that shit's so embarrassing, especially the Flash if you love Wookiees, or he's like, you want to take your shirt off. But I guess the payoff, no, I will say when he does it on Kristen Bell, it's lame, but the payoff works when he does it to, he doesn't know it's an escort and she just immediately does it and he's like shocked. So I guess that does work there.
It works there because it's so cringy, but also it almost it's so weird for a character to do that, even if he lives in his mom's carriage house.
And it sucks too, because I would totally chill the fuck down in that stupid ass garage with all that nerdy shit and play fucking video games.
I would.
I know, but it's just like,
I still would.
I know, yeah, dude. I need a fucking space.
We were talking about this earlier. We were saying how collectors are really lame, but at the same time, if I won the Powerball, I would have a basement full of arcade cabinets and nerd shit. We were talking about that like 4 hours ago.
Yeah.
When I was supposed to be working and I was talking about F-Zero AX machines on Facebook Messenger.
Yeah. I don't know.
Do we hate this movie or do we hate what it shows us?
No, I like parts of this movie for sure. Like,
no, I don't hate this movie.
I like when Windows finally gets to meet his woman he's talking to on the internet, and it's like a 10-year-old girl.
It's better than it being a man, because they joke about it being a man the whole time, which is the obvious joke.
It'd be way too easy.
Yeah.
And because of how his character is and how weird and awkward he is, it's one of the best jokes where he just immediately starts yelling, "I'm a pedophile! I'm a pedophile!" Like, why would you do that? Why would you say that out loud?
They have to shut him up.
Yeah. And then he's like, well, we only had cyber sex. It's just like, oh fuck. Like, what if, I mean, that's the problem, is like, what if that did happen to you? That you'd be sick. It'd be fucked. Like,
yeah. Unless you're Kevin Spacey who produced this.
Yeah. It's just like yelling. I've never seen that anywhere, like yelling, "I'm a pedophile."
There's some stuff. There was some stuff I remember when Kristen Bell, who we need to talk about her character.
Yeah.
But has the blue tampons and she's Picasso's blue period. I'm like, Ernest didn't write that joke. That joke's too clever. That joke's too, it's referencing something outside of the 80s. So
yeah.
It can't be. I'm not saying it's the smartest joke in the world, but
yeah. Why do they keep saying they've planned this thing since they were 6? That wouldn't make any sense. Unless they were trying to see an early cut of Empire Strikes Back or something.
I think they were just planning going to the ranch.
But ILM wasn't like, I mean, it took a second to be founded and to be
and to be built centered there.
Yeah, and known.
So
by
I don't. Did they say 6 or like sixth grade?
No, he said 6.
Okay, that's weird. Yeah, that
doesn't make any sense.
Because I mean, then it'd be like 15. It'd be like, yeah, it would be like you're trying to see a rough cut of Return of the Jedi or something.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't even know.
Whatever.
Anyway.
But
I want to talk about the archetypal manic trick pixie dream nerd girl.
Yeah.
And how obnoxious it is.
But also how realistic it is when the guys are like, "Oh, you're not a girl, you're just one of the guys," because guys were like that a lot back in the day, and still are. Like, like
You
on
think so?
Xbox Live, on internet and shit. It's like, "Oh, get out of here, woman!" Blah blah blah. Don't make me say like.
No,
It's
that's
the
the thing.
whole thing.
It's something I thought. So I talked recently with a friend about how Hollywood messed up her idea of like romance and relationships via romantic movies and stuff, and how that gives you an unrealistic idea of what things are. And then on the other hand, it's easy to excuse it or to say it was just a different time, but does life imitate art or does art imitate life? Because I do think if you grew up watching Weird Science and 16 Candles and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and then not really talking to women a whole lot, you're gonna have a weird view of them, which is odd. But also at the same time, I was playing video games with objectified like boob armor models and stuff like that, and I could separate fantasy from fiction, and I was like a kissless virgin throughout all of high school, but I knew what reality was, despite hanging out at the fucking land center and playing Call of Cthulhu tabletop RPGs with people like 10 years older than me.
Yeah, but like, if you look back to the 80s, there very much was like, it was like the peak of lowbrow jocks slamming nerds into
Yeah, like
fucking
Brett Kavanaugh stuff.
okay, well, yeah, like slamming them into
But actually,
I know, but like it's like that was such a big thing in like
things were
80s
clickier in the 80s from what I hear. I mean, it was exaggerated by teen movies, but I do feel like things were clickier because we definitely had our own social groups in high school, but there was some permeability. It's not like I couldn't talk to people from another social group. I may not go out of my way, but if I had a class with them, they weren't automatically dicks to me because I was part of a different
But
social
also,
group.
like, we were in the middle when we were in high school. We were in the middle of that transition of like what I was talking about earlier about nerd shit becoming cool, things becoming less clicky, everyone becoming accepting of gay and not being racist. Just different stuff that was just so
I'm sorry, that makes me
toxic.
laugh. Accepting of not being racist.
Well,
But
just like
I know that may have
that
happened a
was
little
like
before us, but
shit that was permeating in the 2000s. Like it was like the height of homophobia was
yeah.
and
Also,
xenophobia.
we must emphasize we grew up in Arkansas, so
Yeah, but
that's
still,
another.
like,
We grew up in like a little, not even blue, but bluer pocket of Arkansas, but still Arkansas.
yeah, but like to my point, this movie. It's like one of many that is calling people fags just casually.
Yeah, in 2009,
No,
which is
this
like,
was shot in 2006,
yeah, that's true.
2007. But yeah, like, but like
it's not
they
like the
say
80
they
yard that
say
go.
that they say that word a lot in The Hangover, which was the biggest fucking comedy of 2009. So it was still like right at that. It felt like 2010 hit and it was like, oh, it's a new decade. We gotta stop saying this now.
Right. It is really interesting how humans attach. I don't know. It's like the same part of your brain that tells you 1999 is not $20 is the same part of your brain that when it's a new decade is like, I should stop using slurs, even though it's kind of arbitrary.
Yeah.
Like it's not really any different. It's
Yeah.
the same part of your stupid monkey brain though.
Yeah.
That didn't evolve with numbers. the and I feel like most of civilized society already had gay marriage and stuff, but America was behind a lot of Western democracies in that, for sure.
Like people, like kids will look back and be like, wow, y'all didn't get gay marriage till 2015. What the fuck?
Yeah, it's the same thing as like, I don't know. I guess my parents are old. My dad remembers some civil rights thing. I mean, he was born in 1960 and the Civil Rights Act was 1964, but he remembers there being like, reading the news and there would still be like protests and stuff for because there were still not strictly legal, but Jim Crow-esque things going on. But anyway, Yeah, I was in college. I was almost out of college. What was it? 2015 the gay marriage was legalized?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember. Because we were hanging out and our friend Big Gay Kyle was real happy. Or
That's
as
when
I
we
called him,
started. Yeah.
or as I called him, Kyle.
Yeah. For real. Like, why did we call him Big Gay Kyle? I guess because it was
didn't.
it was a South Park
It was a
reference.
South Park reference. He embraced it weirdly. Although I don't know if he's
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's happy about it.
But also, I mean, that was at the same time we were calling that guy homeless Alex.
Was he homeless? I never met that guy.
Yeah. Well, he was homeless and we called him homeless Alex. That's fucked.
Well, Alex is a common name, so you got to specify which Alex.
It's terrible though. I feel so bad. To be fair, that was when I was like 18, so I'm not saying that's good, but like,
But you were voting.
I was voting. I'm not gonna say who for, but let's say. Oh yeah, I did want to say on the topic of good old Harvey, or no, I'm not gonna say that out loud. Harvey Weinstein, piece of shit. Not only does he ruin movies, he also does other horrible things.
Yeah.
No,
but he also sabotaged Princess Mononoke. So.
I want to talk. I pulled some shit from an interview about Kyle Newman talking about it when they were trying to make it, and it's about Weinstein wanting to change shit. Like he does. He had a hard time with Kevin Smith on shit too, and Kevin Smith, I think, because they're all in that under that Weinstein Company umbrella.
Yeah, Miramax.
He wanted that like cameo in the movie because he liked it, and of course Kevin Smith would like the movie.
Yeah, and Kevin Smith self admits that he is a whore. He's like, I am a whore. He says it outright. So
yeah,
there you go.
But anyway,
it's another gay joke.
I'm just gonna quote this. I'm gonna quote this article. And Dana Bernetti says, somebody told Harvey that every time cancer came up, the movie was no longer funny. That started to fester. And basically what we realized was that whoever Harvey talked to last, that's what he wanted the film to be. It went to whatever film was successful the previous weekend. Imagine that. That would be madness. I remember there was even talk of him wanting to put McLovin in the film during reshoots. And then
I'm not saying he wouldn't have fit, but just shoving him in there and reshoot.
Yeah, that's madness.
Well, it's that sort of executive thinking. And he's a bully. He's a bully executive. He's not somebody who rallies people around and surrounds himself with experts. But also apparently he just follows whatever he thinks the last market quarter was, which is so volatile anyway, and will have changed by the time the movie's actually released. If you're gonna go that recent to the last weekend.
It gets worse too. Kyle Newman says at one point they pitched, why don't we get Rogan back in a fat suit as a woman and let him wrestle Fogler and Baruchel in Jello for car parts? And I said, well, we already had the car breakdown. Does it make sense for the car to break down again just so we can do this? And I was also like, I'm not going to ask Seth if he will do this. He played 3 characters already and he did it as a favor. He did it for no money. And they're like, call him. And I was like, there's no way in hell I'm calling him. Forget it. This is the kind of stupid shit that gets shoved into these movies. He wanted Rogan to wear a fat suit as a woman and wrestle these characters in Jello.
I think not exactly that, but I think that's a scene from Bubble Boy with Jake Gyllenhaal, with Academy Award nominee Jake Gyllenhaal. Where he has to mud wrestle a couple of babes for money to fix his car or something.
It's like the internet has kind of made it where creators kind of can speak directly to the viewers. And so it cuts down some of the corporate bullshit sometimes. And also we have that.
At least changes it.
It changes it. We have this whole thing where like, fans will be like, no, this is shitty, and then some of the companies will listen to it, like when they changed Sonic the Hedgehog style, which is unfair that they bullied the fucking company, but also he looked like complete dog shit. So
that's the one example I can think of bad. But then you have, circling it back to Star Wars, the backlash to The Last Jedi, making Rise of Skywalker this weird concession piece that appealed to nobody. It appealed in that's almost a rule of not even just making movies, but of marketing, of anything, of cuisine. If you try to appeal to everybody, you appeal to nobody. Which is that's So how the heck do you make blockbusters in this
Yeah.
age?
And another part of this article says they wanted an animal in the trailer, not for the movie, but just for the trailer. A monkey at the opening party was going to drink a Heineken and vomit in Dan Fogler's Stormtrooper helmet. And then Fogler was going to put the helmet on his head. And they wanted to make Jay Baruchel have a boner for the whole movie because nothing grounds a film and sets up an emotion of the cancer subplot better than endless erections.
Then like Priapism, where he has to go to the emergency room, like for longer than 4 hours, and that's what they tell you to not do on the Cialis commercials.
And finally, at one point, they wanted to have Harry Potter references in the movie, and I said Harry Potter doesn't exist in 1998, so no. That's the kind of shit they were dealing with while making this movie. And this is just one example of many fucking comedy blockbusters during this time and before its time that had to deal with this shit all the time. And you have to wonder, like, what the fuck? And that's why I'm wondering if, like, it's harder to do big studio comedies now because there's less bullshit that they can get away with, or because studios are too afraid that they're gonna quote unquote offend people, even though that's not even a real issue.
I think it's just stuff that would be like this would just go straight to streaming. I really think it's 90% that. And I don't know enough about streaming. I know the Writers Guild of America recently. I mean, we're probably about to have another writer's strike.
Yeah.
Which honestly, good. We need it. Like, I almost think we need, not even for the writers' pay, although that's good and all, get your money, but also just to kind of shake things up and reset the culture a bit, if that makes any sense. Just like to throw a wrench in the gears and slow things down.
Sure.
So maybe some sediment can fall down to the bottom so we can drink some clean fucking nourishment for once.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or we'll get like a bunch of garbage from Scabs.
Kristen Bell was like somehow like the biggest main cast member in here, and
she's the biggest star. It's because this was filmed. I think she was just in Veronica Mars before this.
She was shooting Veronica Mars 5 days a week, and then she would fly out and shoot they only had her for a day and a half a week. That's why she's not really in the first half of the movie. She's only in the second half. That's why, I guess. Which is crazy.
I want to talk about her character a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to. The nerd girl thing, it's so cringy. And I remember dating a nerd girl kind of closer to this era of culture, and what she hated about the nerd girl thing, like she would hate, and they do it in this movie, when the trash compactor scene, which is kind of useless. It's just a hey, remember this reference. But she's like, hey girls. It's like, oh dude, the girls calling the girl, or the girls calling them a pussy, but she has a pussy. She is a girl.
Yeah. And she calls them pussies like several times.
Right. And it's I think alienating to real women, because you're not writing that. It's a lot of times you think of, I'll give you an example. Elaine and Seinfeld, that was a note from the producers that Seinfeld, despite his ego, said was actually a good point of like, we should have at least one woman character in the show. But Elaine is also a complicated character, and just as fuck shit as everyone else on the cast, in a good way.
Yes.
And is meant to draw women and men in this, as opposed to a female character written exclusively for men with clearly probably no input whatsoever. I don't know how much input
I doubt it
could have had with a day and a half of shooting.
It is very much like dorks writing a quote unquote hot nerd girl, and it
is
shows the whole time. It's
and almost like, I never get a sense of why she would be hanging out with these guys,
right?
Or why she would like Jay Baruchel, even though he seems like a quote unquote nice guy, but that's not necessarily enough. Maybe if your options are slim because it's pre-Tinder and you live in bumfuck Ohio.
Yeah, we don't get too much of a build-up. Like, she tries to get his attention once or twice, but it's just not enough there. But whatever.
But that's their arc. They have an arc together. The characters do have arcs. Dude moves out of his mom's garage.
Right.
Starts a detailing service. which I guess he's in the cars or something because he made that car. With that
Yes.
van, I guess. Dude starts his art. Even his douchebag brother who calls at the end, in the last 5 minutes of the movie, there's a Boba Fag joke. But it's like, but even he who plays like the douchebag Roy in The Office, who's like one of my most hated plot devices of like, we're gonna the two characters you want to get together aren't together, and we have a one-dimensional asshole boyfriend character to make it seem the other character seem cooler. Like he played that guy, that trope in The Office, which I hate. But it's like, even he has an act, he's like, yeah, it's the wars, man. Like, oh, he comes through and
now that's the thing though, is that's I like that though, because it's so true. Because like when it comes down to it, most people are like, yeah, man, it's Star Wars, I'm gonna go see it.
And here's the thing though, another thing about nerd culture, especially of this age, and it's weird because media has become so fragmented and audiences have become so fragmented because there's so much. There's too much entertainment, and yet here we are trying to make another podcast. But the idea that Star Wars is somehow nerdy or esoteric, they're the biggest fucking movies ever made.
Yeah.
You're not a nerd for watching A New Hope, the second highest grossing movie ever made behind Gone with the Wind.
That's so
Like,
fucking wild how
it's
that
the
works.
opposite of nerd.
Yeah.
Nerd is if you're watching Tetsuo the Iron Man or some other obscure thing. But the thing is, that actually takes patience and intelligence and an idea of film criticism, an idea of a real culture from a real place that exists, instead of whatever the hell. And I love escapism. I've dedicated my life to escapism in many ways. But the idea that maybe you were persecuted, it's almost like The Social Network. You're going to think girls don't like you because you're a nerd. And it's not true. It's because you're an asshole. So share this video on Facebook and hopefully we don't get zucked.
Yeah. And as shaky as this movie is, I have to admire it for a good portion of it being almost like it is like a good portion of it an indie movie that had to fight to get to where it was. And despite it all, it still came out after all this fight. And yeah, they had to insert scenes, and yeah, they had to do this. And I feel bad for them, but like, at least it was released, I guess. And like the fact that they got all these cameos is badass from like an indie standpoint.
And that's before cameos were everywhere.
Yeah, getting Billy D. Williams and Carrie Fisher is pretty cool. Especially for this. Having George Lucas,
Shatner.
Yeah, and William Shatner. And having George Lucas's stamp of approval is cool. Like, what the fuck? And I don't know. It's just
everything I like about this movie, I like despite the movie.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And it's a movie that I would recommend if you're interested in watching it. You know, if somebody was like, should I watch that? I'm like, almost as a time capsule, but there are some things to like about this movie. And if you go into it with the right expectations.
Yeah, it's free on YouTube.
It is free on. I watched it free on Tubi.
How the fuck they pulled Will Forte, Craig Robinson, and Danny McBride? It's like, what the fuck?
I have no idea.
But the thing is lucky for us, the viewer, Danny McBride is funny in literally anything. It could be the worst movie ever. He's still fucking funny in it. And I love when he's just shit talking them and calling them fucking virgins and shit.
And apparently they've been following them the whole time for whatever reason. And it's a very simple joke. But he's like, and you're a huge Rush fan. How do you know that? Because it's on your t-shirt, dipshit.
Yeah.
It's a very simple joke, but it's kind of like,
But this is post Pineapple Express. How did they get these guys? I don't understand, dude.
I don't know.
But whatever.
I do want to point out before we go, Kyle Newman, his last movie, first of all, he directed a Taylor Swift music video and a couple of Lana Del Rey music videos, so he did all right for himself. But
yeah, that fucking Lana Del Rey video is one of the like most popular songs from the 2010s.
Yeah, what, Summertime Sadness?
Yeah,
that's huge. So, but his latest film from 2022 is called One Up, and it says follows a gamer who quits her college esports team due to sexism from her male counterparts.
Dude, I heard that movie blows dick.
I couldn't watch the trailer past the first minute. It was like, girls can be gamers too. I mean, again, it's like, this is 2022. We know that you don't have to make an all-girl esports team like the Frag Dolls in 2004 with Halo. Like, that's the plot of the movie.
No, dude, girls can only play Animal Crossing and fucking Mario Kart.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to play anything else.
Ruby
Sorry.
Rose is in it somehow.
Wow, girls like Star Wars. It's the most
Kevin
high,
Farley.
it's one of the most highest grossing movies of all time. I can't believe women would go see it.
I've heard Megan Fox on a late night say she was a nerd because she likes Star Wars.
Wow.
Whoa.
I
Say
feel
you're a
bad for
nerd because
Megan
you're in
Fox.
Transformers. I don't know.
Megan Fox had to go through that whole 2000s women movies shit.
I don't know why. I mean, fuck Machine Gun
TMNT
Kelly.
nerdom, all that shit.
But she had to go through some stuff. She got typecast, and you can tell it probably damaged her, which sucks.
Yeah. Nice, dude. Jennifer's Body. That's Parker made me watch that. She's like, no, it's got this like camp to it. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. And she was right. It's pretty enjoyable.
Yeah, I bet it is.
So like she needs to do Megan Fox needs to lean more into that kind of shit.
I don't even know what she's doing now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Dating Machine Gun Kelly and
Oh
snorting.
no, I think they broke up. He's a piece of shit.
I don't
want to talk about celebrity gossip though.
No, I don't care.
Anyway, we're gonna wrap up this talk about Fanboys, but we will be back in a few weeks with another Star Wars centric cast, even though this is supposed to be Underground Film Channel. But we're gonna be celebrating our 100th episode of
The real Star Wars celebration.
Yeah, the real Star Wars celebration. That's good. But I didn't know what to do it on, but I really wanted to talk to the boys about the state of Star Wars in 2023 as it stands right now.
Yeah.
And because our second episode of the show was the Rise of Skywalker review, before we really got our foot in what kind of shit we would be doing this cast, I feel like there's nothing wrong with having a casual discussion.
You also really thank you for watching. If you're watching this, and especially if you made it this far, but if you watch this at all, the fact that I started out being excited if we got 50 views, and now our highest episode has almost 3,000 is an amazing feeling. Even if we never, it would be amazing, but even if we never get able to quit our day jobs or something after this, I think the fact that we have the fan base that we have is awesome. And thank you guys for watching. And I want to close this by reading a poem by Ernest Cline.
Oh no. Okay.
It's called Nerd Porn Auteur. I've noticed that there don't seem to be any porno movies that are made for guys like me. All the porn I've come across was targeted at beer-swilling sports bar dwelling alpha males, men who like their women stupid and submissive, men who can only get it up for monosyllabic cock-hungry nymphos. I don't see any problem with this so far. With gargantuan, blah, blah, blah. These aren't real women. They're objects. Yeah, because you're so great at writing women, Ernest. I want porno movies that are made with guys like me in mind. Guys who know that the sexiest thing in the world is a woman smarter than you are. I want the girl in the tweed skirt and horn-rimmed glasses. Betty Finabowski, the valedictorian. Oh, yes. First, I want to copy her trig homework. And then I want to make mad, passionate love to her for hours and hours until she reluctantly asks if we can stop because she doesn't want to miss Battlestar Galactica. Summa cum laude, baby. This is only 20% maybe of the poem. It keeps going. I'm not gonna do this.
Please
I'm not. And there is no God.
This guy needs to get a fucking grip.
He's a millionaire.
He
I heard
probably
Ready
thinks
Player
Long
2
Duck
was
Dong is a good character.
Long Duck Dong is a great character.
Yeah. Anyway. Thanks for watching, everybody. All of you glup shittos out there that love to consume.
Yo, if you like glup shitto, like and subscribe.
Yeah, if you love consuming content, dude, we're here for you. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week.